Uncle Eric and Uncle Dave have been squabbling on Twitter over all Elite Wrestling. And yeah, it's WrestleMania week. You're losing, Uncle Eric, because you're talking about AEW on WrestleMania week. Right. See, before we even dive into the video, let's just debunk that argument, right? Eric Bischoff is not Triple H. He's not in charge of WWE. He might have a Legends contract, right? But he's also appeared in AEW in recent years. How is Tony Khan winning because Eric Bischoff is talking about AEW on WrestleMania week? Now, if you want to spin it and say, well, it just shows you how good AEW is because Eric Bischoff's talking about that and not what's happening in WWE, even though he's talking about both, right? Eric Bischoff has a podcast. Eric Bischoff does YouTube. He does 83 weeks. He discusses the wrestling world. Hell, he talks about fucking TNA, man. Just because he talks about AEW, right, doesn't automatically mean that AEW on WrestleMania week is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Because if sliced bread, if you actually look at it's not like he's praising AEW. He's not putting AEW over. He's completely bashing it. You know, a lot of the content has been due to the response from AEW about the CM Punk interview. You could argue there's no such thing as bad attention, but it's negative. It's not like AEW is being praised here. We've seen a lot of pandering going on Dynamite, and he actually responded to this because the Young Bucks says, "We like your work, scapegoat." And then Matt or Nick Jackson, I can't tell them apart. I know they're not twins, but hell, they're not the Hardy Boys either, so I'm not going to be able to tell them apart. But essentially, he said that, referring to Jack Perry, who of course is in Japan. Again, it's like Edge takes a shot at CM Punk, right? You've got Tony Khan tweeting throughout the entire show, taking shots at CM Punk during their actual television program, and then you've got the Young Bucks like saying that it's pathetic, and like the crowd and AEW fans are all marking it about it. We even seen when, like, I believe it was it Punk, one of his promos a couple of months ago, he made a reference to something in AEW. And the crowd just didn't get it, because you know why? The WWE fans in the crowd, most of them will be casual. They don't give a shit about what happens in a pissant company like AEW. But he responded with a clown emoji to this Eric Bischoff, and that unleashed a can of worms, because this is when Dave Meltzer got involved, folks. Dave Meltzer said, "Please don't lie to this guy." And then what did Eric Bischoff respond with? He said, "Define irony." Because Dave Meltzer's telling someone else not to lie. Dave Meltzer, he's the king of the bullshit. He makes up all these news articles just to sell his newsletters, pretty much what happens. Then Dave Meltzer responds to Eric Bischoff. He says, "Define obsession." Then Eric Bischoff said, "I'm obsessed with the absolute blast it is watching so many people expose you for what you are. Puts a smile on my face every time. Cool glasses emoji." Now you're getting a lot of people respond to this saying, "Oh, these two need a podcast." Obviously, right? You're going to get a lot of hate for both of them. I mean, you're seeing this person here saying, "Nah, Eric, honestly, you're both pathetic. You've both been coasting for 30 years on something you did with someone else's money. You hate Tony Khan because you're both the same." End of quote. I mean, right. See, Eric Bischoff, he did have a lot of money at his disposal, right, in WCW. And did he squander it away? I think, yes, absolutely. I think giving people the guaranteed contracts where if someone comes in, like Hall and Nash, if someone comes in, they automatically get paid the same as them. That is a disaster in itself. You know, revealing that Mankind was going to win the belt, and that's pretty much what shifted the whole dynamic of the Monday Night War. There's a lot of stuff that Eric Bischoff has done that's not been a disaster. And Vince McMahon has been the same. But hell, everybody in the wrestling business has done something at one point that's been a disaster, right? But let's just take the fact that Eric Bischoff, right, is WCW run. Let's even forget about that. What about his unforgettable run? His Raw GM in the Ruthless Aggression era? You know, he's not in charge of anybody's money there. He's simply playing the role of a GM. Gave us some epic moments, iconic moments. I mean, the greatest general manager, in my opinion. What's Tony Khan done with all this money? He's brought in a bunch of jobbers for Japan. You know, AEW's been running for 5 years. If you actually look 5 years ago, out of all the stars that you could have still got that, from like the bygone era, I mean, they could have went and got Hogan. They could have went and got Goldberg. Not that Hogan could have worked. The hell, having Hogan on the product would just be better. But what did they do? They go and splash the cash on a bunch of jobbers for Japan. So to compare Tony Khan and Eric Bischoff is fucking ludicrous. Because also, let's bear in mind, Eric Bischoff was smoking the WWF back in the day. Now, yeah, the WCW ended up losing. But let's not pretend that they're the exact same person. Because Eric Bischoff has delivered some of the greatest things in wrestling history. I mean, the NWO alone. Look at the amount of stuff that happened in WCW. A lot of it's got to go down to Eric Bischoff. Now, yeah, you've got to look at some of the bad stuff as well, but Eric Bischoff's name will forever be iconic within the wrestling business. He's created so much things. What's Tony Khan actually created? Apart from like a jobber company with some of the cringiest moments you'll ever remember. I'll never forget that PTSD explosion in the middle of the ring because it was with Eddie Kingston. Some of the worst television you'll ever see, man. See if that was back in the day, I would like to think that they would have just fucking fired him on the spot for that. Because that's what should have happened. But here, people are saying that Eric Bischoff does not win this argument because he's ran 2 wrestling companies into the ground while Meltzer's run none. So hold on. So Eric Bischoff, right, who's actually been involved in the wrestling business for a long time, he's worse than Dave Meltzer, some sad guy that sat in his basement writing newsletters about it. See, this is where people can't win. Eric Bischoff, man. So what? If WCW didn't work out and TNA turned into a bit of disaster, like, you can simply not blame the fall of TNA on Eric Bischoff. That's weak. And the same goes for WCW. Yeah, he had his part in it, but to blame him for the fall solely is a ridiculous statement to make. And for people to even compare that Dave Meltzer and like Eric Bischoff, no, it's one thing to even compare Bischoff and Tony Khan, but to sit there and try and compare a guy that's been involved in wrestling, like actually involved, he's been allowed in through the doors for like 4 decades, compared to a guy like Tony Khan, who, oh no, Dave Meltzer, who just writes about it, just gives out fake ratings to fake matches. Oh, why? Because that's comparable in the two. Pathetic, but yeah. Bischoff, I'm sure he'll be producing some great content over on 83 weeks. That is for sure, but we'll have to see how this goes. And then he also did comment on the Dynamite rating about how long it would go before May 15th. That's his prediction before it goes under 700k. But we've already made a video about that, so you want to check out the AEW ratings, go ahead. But it's funny seeing all these sad bastards try and blast Bischoff for actually having a successful career in professional wrestling while Dave Meltzer's just talked about it for 11. Is what it is, folks. But anyway, till next time. Peace.